Right, as I said that in this video, we're going to focus on Math 1100 tutorial sheet. That is that is quiz one, last year's quiz one, 2024 quiz one, and from there we'll just finish up where we started from. So if you're new and you've not watched the first part, so watch part one of this quiz solving, then you can be able to watch this one as we continue. If you have any questions along the way, just feel free to ask. All right, so the first question says write down the value of the modulus. So we have modulus of 3 there. So there's modulus outside, then there's modulus of -3, plus, then there's modulus -5, modulus, then there, divided by, then there is 10, minus, then there's modulus of -17, like that. Then there's the outer modulus there. So now, what are we supposed to do here? What we do is whatever is in the modulus, we just have to make it positive, because we know that the modulus always has to give us what? A positive value. So I'll write my outer modulus here. Then this -3 here means it will be just +3, and the -5 becomes +5. Then I have this there. Then down I just have 10 minus this -17 just becomes a +17, and I have my 17 to be there. And I close this. Then I'm going to work this where that is inside. So I can add those two numbers on top there. Then I just have 8 there. Then when I subtract those two there, this here gives me negative 7. Okay, I get -7 there. Then now, of course, when I divide this just gives me inside there, I'm getting like -8/7. But then, because it's in the modulus, I have to evaluate this to become a positive value, and this just becomes 8/7. And that's how I do work out this question on the modulus. All right, let's move on to the next question. Today's class is going to be short because we only have a few questions to finish up here. All right, so we are told write the complex number, that number there in the form a plus ib, in the form a plus ib. So now when you look at that there, you have 3 minus I, then you have 2 plus 3i. Okay, then divided by that is 1 plus I. Then they tell you to write in the form a plus ib. So now to get to this standard form, what can I do? So on top here, I can easily just expand that. So I'm having 3 by 2, which gives me 6. I have 3 by 3, that gives me 9. So this will be plus 9i. And I have negative I by 2, that gives me -2i. The -I plus 3i, that gives me -3i squared. Then I close that. Then just down there, I'll have the 1 plus I. Okay. So even if I do not have these brackets, if I remove them, it just still remains the same. And so I can say this on top gives me 6, 9i minus 3 minus 2i, that gives me 7. So I'll just have plus 7i, then minus 3i squared. Then down there is 1 plus I. Of course, I can, where there's I squared, replace with a -1, because I know that -1, negative root of root -1 just gives me I. So when I square this side and square the other side, I just get -1 to be equal to I squared. So whatever it is I squared, I can replace -1. Then I have 6 there plus 7i, then minus 3, then I place my -I, then divided by 1 plus I. Then okay, after this gives me +3. Then I have this 9 there. So 9 plus the 3 just gives me, I mean 6 by the 3 here gives me 9. I'm way ahead of you, I guess. So let me erase this part here. So I get a 9 there on top, and whatever I get there down still remains the same. So this here gives me a 9. plus 7i divided by 1 plus I. But I'm not yet in the standard form. So to get to that standard form, what I do is I just have to now simplify this. And how do I simplify this? I rationalize. So I rationalize by just multiplying by the conjugate in the numerator and in the denominator. And I just get, okay, this is just going to be 1. Then that sign there in between will change from being 1 to just there negative I. Then down there, I'm just going to have 1 minus I. Then I can work this out further. And I know I just get, so 9 plus 9 multiplied by 1, I get 9. 9 by negative I, that just gives me negative 9i. Then I have this part where I have 7i by 1, that gives me plus 7i. Then I have the last part gives me negative 7i squared. Then down there, I know if I just square this and also have square the other one. So if I say 1 squared minus I squared, like this. So I can say this, and there I just get this would be 9, but this here give me negative 1, and that would be just 1 plus whatever I get here, which is going to be 2. Then yeah, so it's gonna be 1 plus 1, which is going to just be 2. Okay. Oh, you can really expand this just to say 1 by 1, there you get 1. 1 by negative I, you get negative I. Then you have I by 1, then that gives you I. So with positive I, then that gives you negative I squared. But you see that this term here just goes, it becomes 0. And you have negative I squared, which is just what we have there. Okay, so continuing from here, you subtract, so here I can subtract this 2 here, so I have 9. Subtract that, that gives me negative 2i. Then negative 7, what is the I squared? I replace negative 1 and I get that. Then down there gives me 1, that's gonna give me negative, that gives me negative I. And there I will have this by that gives me positive 7. 7 by 9, so I have 7 plus 9, I mean, so negative 2i there down. Then there I get 1 plus 1. Then okay, so what is gonna be my, that's what, 7 plus 7 plus 9, that just gives me 16. So I have 16 minus 2i. Then I'm dividing by 2. Then when I divide this, 2 can divide into 16, that's 8 times. 2 can divide into 2, that is once, and that gives me I. And this is the form which they asked for, which is just A plus IB, where my A is 8 and my B is negative 1, and I have my I there. Okay, unless there are any questions, but this is how you work out this, and this is how you simplify this to such a form, right? Since there aren't any questions, we move on to the last question for this class. Yeah, so if you didn't watch the first part, just watch the first part of these questions, then you'll be able to pick up from there. So they're telling you let Z. So Z be this complex number where you have x plus I, y. Then they're telling you to express the quantity that is modulus of x bar, which is, we know this would just be the conjugate of x, then minus 1 minus 3i, then squared in terms of x and y. So now how am I going to do that in terms of x and y? Okay, this is not complicated. Also, one thing you must remember is if you have a complex number, for example, you have a plus ib, like that one where we had at first, this in the modulus, this is the same, or this just means a squared plus b squared plus b squared. This here is going to be handy even as we work out this. So now the conjugate where you see x bar, this is the conjugate of what? Of x. So meaning where there is a positive there in between, the conjugate has a negative, and you get this here. So now we replace this in that part. So this is going to be modulus of, and this here becomes x minus I y, like this. Then you have minus 1 minus 3i. then you have the squared there. Okay, then I can just group these terms. So how do I group them? I group the real parts together, and then I group the imaginary parts together. So this is going to give me x minus 1. Then I close this just for the sake of just closing. Then, of course, here, if I have a negative, then I'm going to have this to be 3 plus y, then I, then squared. So you can see this negative, when it distributes, this gives us negative 3, negative y, and of course you're multiplying the I as well. So these terms will have I, which is just those terms which we have here. So now we get this. So after getting to this form, we understand we have the real part and we have the imaginary part, and we can work out just that same way here what we did at first. So this is just going to be equal to, uh, so I'll say this will be equal to root of, then the first part there is just x minus 1 squared, then I'll have plus, then you have the negative sign, of course, then 3 plus y, you do not involve the I there, then this here squared, and yeah, this squared, but then remember there's this other outer square that's there, so you have that squared there. So what is that going to be? Okay, you know that these two will cancel with that one, of course, then you just remain with x minus 1 squared. Here, when I square this, negative becomes positive, then I have plus here, and I have 3 plus y, then squared. Then, of course, they're telling me to express in terms of x and y. So I can expand this where I just have x squared. That will be minus 2x. Then that will be plus 1. Then I will have, that's going to be 9. 9 plus, that will be, what do I get there? 9 plus, all right, so we continue. So that there then becomes, I have 9 by 9, that 3, this gives me just 6y, and I'll have plus y squared. So after getting this, that doesn't give me trouble at all, and I'll just have, this is gonna be, again, group, add this plus that, and that gives me 10, and this is gonna be just x squared. If I want, I can write the squares together, where I just write plus y squared minus 2x squared, then plus 6y, of course, then plus 10. Then I've expressed this in terms of x and y as required in the what? In the question. All right, unless there's any other question concerning what we've done today, but this is where quiz one, last year's quiz one ends. Do I have any question? Okay, since there are no questions, we end here.